I'm like, why are we talking about this? Like, just because it looks good doesn't mean it has any value. You know what I'm saying? It's not to be disrespectful, but it's kind of like people. There's a lot of people who look good. You know what I'm saying?
Snap.
You know,
you can't put not to be disrespectful before.
Human beings are worthless.
No, what I'm saying is, I mean, that's true. But what I'm saying is that some people look good.
Hello and welcome to the SAB podcast. That stands for Super Agile Brothers podcast. In case this is your first time joining us today, we are your favorite podcast about all things nerd culture. I'm your brother Kyle, and today I'm joined by the other Super Agile brothers, Steve and Bradston. Tell everybody what's up, you guys. How you doing today, Steve?
Well, actually, I'm doing quite well, thank you. I had COVID like last week, and so I'm still recovering from it, and it made my voice nerdier. Who would have guessed?
Oh, I thought this deeper version was your normal voice.
No, that's how I always sound, right?
No, you sounded more, I guess, masculine. I don't
know. No, surely not.
Less. You sounded less nerdy in whatever fake voice you were doing. Yeah.
My wife says she loves my voice.
Yeah,
well, she has to.
She kind of has to. I mean,
what else is she gonna say? The truth?
Not if she don't want. I was gonna. Anyway,
so anyway, how you doing today, Bradston?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. I have not. Luckily, I've not had COVID-19 yet, so I'm hoping to keep up that streak, that 2-year streak.
At all?
Nope, not once.
Yeah, this was my first time. I thought I had a good thing going.
Wait, have you had it, Kyle?
Yeah, I actually got COVID in February of 2020.
Really? Oh,
so like instantly.
Yeah. So before people knew that it was going around, I had it. And bro,
he read about it online and he picked it up from the website.
Yeah. Don't click those links.
Huh.
Yeah. But wash your hands after you browse the web.
It brought me down too, man. We had no idea. I thought it was like the flu, but it, I didn't go to the hospital or anything, so I didn't get checked. But wow, it was rough.
And so you have the antibodies in you?
I guess so, because that was the first time I had it, and then I got it again, the Delta variant.
He has some antibodies somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere.
They weren't. About their antibody. Anyway, so wow, I didn't know that.
I was getting bodied.
I never heard you. Never mention it. Wow.
Oh yeah, I really don't mention when I get sick. I even worked both times I had COVID. Like nobody knew I was sick.
Wait, did you come to were you coming into the office in February when you were sick, or were you like laid out done?
No, it was like over the weekend. So I did come. I probably came back to the office sooner than I should have, just because I didn't know what it was. But no, I didn't go in when I was sick. The day I felt the worst, I think it was a Friday afternoon.
Interesting.
I probably was going to get lunch with you that Friday, and you didn't come, and I was like, man, I wish Kyle was here today. Today sucks.
I could have shared with you.
Yeah, I might have been out of town for work, because in February I was traveling, so there's a chance that I lucked out.
Oh. So we were all supposed to get it together. It was supposed to be a brotherly COVID contact.
Yeah. Was I even in town still? Hadn't I moved by then? I might have moved already.
No, you were still... February 2020?
Let's see. Oh, no. COVID started before I left. Yeah, I was still in Louisiana.
Yeah, because I got married, then you left.
You sure did.
Then you left. So that was June of 2020. Yeah. So
yeah, it was a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Time flies when you're getting COVID. Oops.
Not while you have it, though.
That's true. I felt pretty miserable for about a day and a half.
Yeah,
it lingers.
I definitely don't want to make light of it. I take it very seriously. So for any person who's been impacted, affected, had it, that my heart goes out to you. No matter how easy it was for you, plenty of people have suffered heavily, long COVID. Oh, yeah. People have passed. So it's still tough. Still tough.
Yeah. Thankfully, the worst part for me, aside from that day and a half, is just having to be quarantined for, 10 days or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, like, I live in this office now, and it gets really hot, and I can't open the door to, like, ventilate. So my fans are going to be running because I'm hot in here. I can't touch my wife. I just have to look at her from afar.
Can't even breathe on her.
Can't even breathe on her.
Yeah, that's tough.
Just look at her longingly through windows.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Just both.
I'll get her to turn around, and then I'll just stare at her and stare at her back and be like, yeah.
Oh.
Or you both, or like
She turns, and then I start laughing, and she's like, "Why are you laughing?" And I'm like, "I didn't need those pretzels, but thank you for getting them out of the drawer."
Or you do like in a movie where you both put your back on the same door and then sing a duet. If only I knew. So it's tough. It's like I don't know the lyrics.
If only
I don't know the lyrics, babe.
Well, cool. So that's what we're talking about today.
COVID, yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. No. So we're going to segue, the cleanest segue, into our topic for today. Thanks everyone who's still listening, even though we went on our tangent. But today we want to talk about the very simple question, pretty niche. Not too many people care about it, but this the idea of graphics and fidelity when it comes to pretty much anything we deal with. So the initial question is, and I pose to you guys, answer whichever one you want to answer first. How do graphics affect your perspective of a project? So like a game, a TV show, a movie, anything you're going to deal with. The graphics determine how likely you are to engage.
Yes.
Okay.
But not necessarily, maybe not for the reasons or in the ways, maybe it doesn't affect me in the ways you would expect. But
Ooh.
yes, I do see graphics and I do make judgments about games based on graphics.
Okay. What do you mean?
I will hold my ideas until later. Do you want to answer first?
Yeah.
Or I can continue if you just really want to.
I'm going to elaborate on mine. So.
Oh, you're going to elaborate. Then I should elaborate.
Well, it's too late. You lost your chance. So,
Okay.
Snooze, you lose.
The answer to me is not really, and not very often does it really matter to me. I think it's always a bonus. I do like when a game feels good, like from a visual aspect, and I like the little pieces, the juice per se, as game developers would say, that the visual can offer. But I think I've shared this before because I never had like a nice PC, and I always had whatever I was given from a game perspective, and like whatever. I think I'm just happy if the game is fun, So I'll give my low level answer to that. How about that? There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I agree in a lot of ways, both with Steve's concise yes, as well as Braxton. I think fun matters a whole lot more. Like overall presentation, I think graphics are only a percentage of that, and so there's plenty of games that I've played, replayed, considered playing that I just thought didn't look good visually. And sometimes it's a choice, which I appreciate that in a way. Somebody's visual style comes through a game. Like everything's consistent, but I don't like the way it looks. I mean, sometimes that's fine. And so, but yeah, graphics I think do still play a part. If something looks too egregiously bad, or something looks very like telling that it's a horror style game, like everything's all greasy looking, then sometimes I won't play it.
They do love that moist look in horror games.
They do. Everything's just wet, just sopping wet.
It's flesh. It's all flesh.
The smell. That's the thing that I think about the most in those games. How terrible it has to smell.
Oh, it has to.
Yeah. Imagine if your character, how sometimes you walk into a room and they'll add some like flavor. The character will like recoil or be like, oh, because it's supposed to smell bad, or maybe it's hot or it's cold or whatever. Imagine if the characters were like real people and they just never shut up. And they're just like, oh man, it smells terrible. And they start cracking like bad jokes like, maybe it's your upper lip.
Have you ever played Borderlands 3?
My bagels. Oh, my bagels. Shut up about your bagels, guy.
Absolute worst.
The
world of
but yeah,
Borderlands.
I mean, I guess that's a great retort to my suggestion because Borderlands 3 really was like that.
I mean, to me, like when it comes to like art and like, I think I appreciate anybody who's making their art for whatever they're trying to do. For example, a game that we've brought up many times, I think, on this podcast, Chimera Land. It's probably one of the least visual spectacles I've ever seen. Like the lowest, like it's not good. It looks like it was made in the PlayStation 2, maybe if you're lucky 3 era. But to me,
it's like an asset flip too.
Yeah, it kind of feels like, But I like that they went all in on that aesthetic. It doesn't look great, but it feels like the right thing for what they were trying to do. You know, I think it could.
By golly, it feels like it looks.
It does. It really matches.
Does. It really does. It's
yeah. So that's actually part of what I was getting at was that, you know, some people, you know, maybe they see a low resolution game and they're put off by that. But for me, I mean, yeah, honestly, I think below some resolution, I'm not interested. But when I see all these games that just look the same, even if they have incredible photorealistic graphics and art, I think it's not just the quality and the amount of fun. I think the art is important to me in that it can tell me what the setting and the story is going to be like, and therefore maybe what the gameplay will be like. So you can usually tell a fantasy game apart from like a Call of Duty game, even if they're both photorealistic. Fantasy game will be a little more stylized. The colors will be maybe a little more vibrant.
The particle effects will be crazy.
They'll have different particle effects, exactly. And that was like, gosh, what was that game that came out? It was the girl. I don't think it came out yet, but the trailers came out. We had talked about how the trailers weren't that interesting. Huh?
The tech demo looking game?
Yes, it looked like a tech demo.
Forspoken.
God, the worst title.
So forgettable.
So bad.
A very, I would say, technically impressive looking game, but it's just so samey looking. It did have a bunch of incredible like particle effects in the second trailer, I think. But before that, I was like, they could put, you know, a rifle in her hands and I would think this is Call of Duty. Like, this looks super boring. At least I did in the trailer. Maybe, I don't know, maybe there's more juice later, but
no.
Yeah, I it's the photorealism puts me off. The really cheap 3D art puts me off when it's not like cel shaded or something. It just looks kind of like clay, not like a textured clay, but like a textureless clay, like a Slime Rancher kind of game. Even the new Solar Ash, made by the guys who did, actually not Solar Ash. That's not. No, it's a different game. I can't remember what I'm thinking of now. Yeah, a lot of indie games have this kind of like generic 3D cartoon art feel that puts me off too.
Yeah, if they use the default texture from whatever modeling program they were using.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, the new Matrix demo came out, right? I funny enough, for whatever reason, I still haven't played it. Like, I just keep seeing videos about it. So it's kind of like, I'll play it later, you know, and I have other things to do. But the new Matrix demo came out. It looked beautiful. People were talking how like crazy. The reaction was, wow, this is so realistic. But, you know, when people started doing those asset flips, like they released the actual project. Or at least the city, so you could like check it out. And then people are like, oh, I made a Superman game. Oh, I made this. And like, to me, and people are like talking about like, this is so cool. This is so awesome. It's on like Kotaku and like people are talking. I'm like, why are we talking about this? Like, just because it looks good doesn't mean it has any value. You know what I'm saying? It's not to be disrespectful, but it's kind of like people. There's a lot of people who look good. You know what I'm saying?
Snap.
You know,
you can't put not to be disrespectful before.
I mean, human beings are worthless.
No, what I'm saying is, I mean, that's true. But what I'm saying is that some people look good. Like, they know how to look good, put the makeup on, wear a nice suit, whatever their style is. But man,
Yeah.
they are trash people. Like, you can't,
Ugly on the inside.
like, they might be horrible because of their personality and they're mean and they're rude and they're all that, or they
Yeah.
literally have nothing to offer, you know. And I feel like that's how I feel about visuals. Like, you have nothing to offer to me, you know. Like, I'd rather lack of a better word, a terrible looking person with a great personality than a great looking person with a terrible personality, you know, personally. But like, that's, I don't know. It just means more to me from a game. So aesthetics are not as important.
Yeah, because it says to me two things. It says, what did the artist intend, if anything? Like, what does what did the artist intend? I won't say any more than that. And the other thing it tells me is like what kind, how talented. Yeah, it tells me the attention to detail and the level of talent of the team. And so, like, you know, obviously, if it's bad and it's badly done, then that to me says the game is badly done. Maybe it's still fun, and if I find out it's fun, I'll still play it. Like, I'm not. I won't just never play it. But like that first impression, like, that's, you know, you lost me there.
Yeah, and that's going back to Forspoken. That's one of the things I guess that I kind of dislike about in the last decade or so asset stores and people putting 3D assets, really great looking assets, 2D assets too, you know, out there for anybody to either download for free or buy and then have full creative license over. But I think initially it started off pretty innocent. You know, they would put the asset out there so people can see how a project works, so they can build their own demos. But I think it's gotten to the point to where, especially with the Unreal asset store, like they're pushing all these environmental assets and these projected images of real world objects that are these just high resolution 3D models and suggesting people use them. And I think these studios are like using them in their final game. And so I remember a time where the way a game looked, like, it was intentional, because if a game looked like another game, it's because it was connected to it in some way. And so now with these photorealistic graphics that anybody can grab, I think it's making this weird, like, giving games this weird indistinguishable quality that, you know, you see a game that has the same backgrounds, the same rock formations, the same assets, but they're completely different, you know, different developers, different gameplay style, completely different intentions, but it's like soulless because it's using all these really nice looking things, but you can't really get connected to it, like you guys were saying.
Yeah, I think that soulless part is the part that kills me, you know? Like, the reason, you know, I haven't played the latest Grand Theft Auto, but the past Grand Theft Autos, I really appreciated the care that the artists put into the world. Like, I think we've talked about this before. Like, you see a random little piece of graffiti behind a trash can that's only there. It's like the only one, right? And Grand Theft Auto has always had, like, I think it's always been comparable, right, to whatever generation is. It looks good. Like, it's not terrible, right? But it's not necessarily the best of the best. So I think they found that medium where it's like, hey, this is our what we're trying to portray, and we are still putting our love into it. And I feel like you were saying, Kyle, a lot of studios have come to this thought that, like, what sells games is how much fidelity and da 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 da, you know. And you'll get into this game and it feels like an empty husk with, like, really nice HDR, blah blah blah. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'd rather you spend that time. Like, I love artists and I want artists to have jobs, number one. But I wish they were able to, like, put more of their heart into what they're doing and less about how many pixels or how, you know what I'm saying? Like, they could really put more of their essence and let the game shine. And it's, I don't know, it just kind of takes away from me personally an experience when a game looks good, but it plays like boo-boo, you know, or it just feels bad, or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because I remember, like, in indie games, a lot of them don't come to fame because they look good, because they play good.
Yeah, although I find that a lot of people do like the art style. Maybe they don't crow about it, but like there are certain art styles that are just celebrated, even if they're not technically impressive or whatever, or as impressive. So like, good 8 or 16-bit games, voxel art, people like that. Hand painted. Oh, I mean, people talk so much about the art in Hollow Knight. Mm-hmm. If you weren't super into those types of games, you might not even notice. Like, oh, there's cute bugs, it's creepy monsters, whatever. But like, some people really just go crazy for the hand drawn. And of course, when Hollow Knight went out and became really popular, now tons of hand drawn Metroidvanias are popping up.
Right.
It used to be the pixel art. Now is the hand drawn art. It is one of the, I think I mentioned, well, I always say this, I mentioned it recently, I think, or I wanted to, but one of my first PC games was Braid, and I remember that not only is it hand drawn, but it's a very painted effect, and he did, let's see.
Yeah, I remember.
He did like really simple fire effects. And one of the cool things was that one of the main mechanics of Braid is that you can push a button and rewind time. And when you do that, it changes like the colors of everything. And it also changes the music. The music plays backwards. And depending on how fast or slow you're rewinding time, like that's how strongly the colors will change. And there's kind of this feeling of like, oh, it's seasonal, and everything was just really beautiful. And it felt like kind of a maybe more saturated, like classical painting. And I'm like, what a great art style. Like, this is super cool. And it's kind of rough looking now just because I think the assets weren't scaled to high resolution. But like, it's still a really interesting style. I would love to see more games like that, but it's kind of rare.
And that was a solo dev too, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was Blow. Jonathan Blow. Johnny Blow. I think he's done like TED Talks and stuff, or whatever the gaming equivalent is.
Oh, nice.
I didn't think the game was that. I mean, at the time I thought it was great, but I mean, there's a lot of cool games that have come out since then. But yeah, he was widely celebrated for a while. For that and The Witness, I think. You played The Witness, right, Brad?
Yeah, I started playing. I played quite a bit of Witness. I think it's one of those games. The style is very. I think it matches what they were going for. I think it's an interesting game. I love puzzle games. The only reason I stopped playing it was just because the puzzles were getting a little bit more esoteric. Like, it didn't.
Sure.
it felt like I was playing the designer. like what are you? I got to figure out what the designer is thinking, not what the puzzle is doing. So anyway, that's another.
You should try Braid. It has some weird puzzles.
Oh,
too.
yeah, I think I beat Braid. Yeah, I beat Braid.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it a while back. That was one of those games that I felt that I needed to play as a game developer.
Oh, yeah, I think we've talked about this.
You bring up a good point, though, about, I guess, the connotations between, like, 2D games and 3D games. And, like, a 3D game is automatically higher fidelity, like, in common vernacular, even though we know it's not true, because especially like with movies studios, the reason why even enormous studios like Disney are moving away from 2D is because it takes so much longer to produce. And so like it's more cost effective to go 3D. But I think then like mainline consumers, I guess, are more impressed by 3D as well.
Yeah,
so if you're not looking at the details of 2D.
I wonder if there will be a time where, a lot of why 3D is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Kyle. A lot of the reason why I imagine 3D is animation is easier to do is because there's a lot of the computer doing some work for you, right? Like
the tools.
Yeah, like what's it called? Like what's the term when you go from one like position
keyframing?
Yeah, like it can like do that kind of stuff for you or help, like, oh, I'm going from a smile to a frown. It can like help you.
Oh, blends.
Yeah,
blend
like
shapes.
All that stuff. Like it kind of maybe helps, but it's a little bit harder to do from a 2D perspective. But I'm wondering if like the industry will continue to mature and we'll see more 2D tools that'll allow essentially the same thing. Like, oh, it's basically behind the scene kind of sort of a 3D model, but it's like very, two-dimensional, and it can still allow for that same, like, basically a 3D animator and a 2D animator to work together to, and I wonder if that'll create more interesting visual, approaches in the future. Yeah.
So that reminds me of something. There's two people on YouTube that immediately came to mind when you mentioned 2D and 3D. One is Worthy Kids, if you look up Ian Worthington. And the other is, I don't remember what his actual name is, but the channel is called A Fox in Space. Ian Worthington basically just he did a few Adult Swim bumpers. He does these cool, like, this is basically just his own little fun animations. But he recently switched. I think he used to draw everything by hand, but I think now he does everything in Blender. Even if he renders it into like 2D and does a 2D scene, he still did all the modeling and stuff in a 3D tool, which is really interesting. And the other guy, Fox in Space, he's been working on a fan-made, basically a show, an unofficial show for Fox.
Star Fox.
For Star
yeah,
Fox.
I've seen that one. It's really good.
Yeah, so he only has one episode, and he's been working on episode 2 for like 5 years or something crazy. Everyone's on the edge of their seats waiting for this episode to drop.
It better be good.
But he started animating. He releases clips every now and then, and he started animating all the characters in Blender. And apparently, it's like drastically increased his production speed. And he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna use Blender from everything now." So the show is still a 2D show, but it's being built in 3D because I guess it's easier.
Yeah, and so the overlap has been, I guess, increasing as the years go on. Like, Flash was one of the ways people really increased like the efficiency of 2D animation, because they'd create each piece of a character and then attach them and then just animate that stuff, and rather than having to hand draw every frame. And then that's kind of crossed over into Adobe Animate, which is what they use now, and that actually does kind of allow what you were talking about before, Braston, about kind of creating a 3D model in 2D. And so you can do like the perspective shifts and stuff like that with those tools. But then even, which I find really interesting, is like when we watched Arcane not too long ago, how 3D, they're painting on 3D models to make them look more 2D as like an aesthetic choice. And so it's like the line between 2D and 3D are getting blurred, because I think a lot of people enjoy the aesthetic of what only a 2D, medium can bring, but also the efficiency of 3D. Because hands down, there's no way you can match even just a couple, like you can render 30 frames in 3D, because if you already have a model in a few minutes, somebody walking or something, versus days in some cases, depending on what a character is wearing, where they're going, the background, and changing perspective, all these different things you don't even, you have to think about them in 3D, of course, but a lot of it's done for you in a way, because it's already built. And so I get it.
Yeah, it's this kind of goes back to like when in indie games, right? Like, and why asset flips exist and why all these other tools exist is because sometimes the limiting factor to, I guess, sharing your vision or some kind of really cool idea is that visual element, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's hard to really, like, for example, let's take Fortnite, for example.
Fortnite.
And you wanted to make Fortnite, but you weren't Epic and you didn't have a budget to pay all these people. Anyway, but you were like, oh, I want to do this in 2D because that's a cheaper option, right? You probably could never convey what you want to convey from a visual standpoint, right? Like, you'd be so limited. So you're like, okay, let's go to 3D. Well, it's going to take us longer, and it's da-da-da-da, and it's going to look like trash. And then it looks like trash, so when that bullet flies across the screen, it's a little bit more muddy, and it's not, the player can't really read it as well. And you know what I'm saying? Like, it starts to actually detriment the game. So, like, there's definitely, like, some, maybe there's a graph out there. I don't know if I've ever seen it from a game development standpoint, where, like, graphic fidelity and gameplay, you know, communication or gameplay, like what's the word I'm looking for? Basically how you communicate something from a visual standpoint, like where they meet to make a great game, right?
Yeah.
You know,
like you can't rely, you know, maybe in a cartoony game you can make the enemies red, but in a photorealistic game you can make them wear red, but the red's going to be a little darker and maybe it's going to blend in with the other stuff in the background if there's red behind them and blah 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 blah. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of, I think I mentioned that muddiness is part of why I don't like a lot of these photorealistic games, because I'm like, I guess I don't know. There's just a couple things about it. Maybe one of them is like you said, my eye isn't necessarily drawn to where it needs to go.
There's a game that came out, well, a couple of games. So when it comes to like games that I think really shatter this idea that a lot of at least big studios have about graphic fidelity, you know, like it's the most important thing. Are games like Undertale and Abba is You. Baba is You. What did I say? Abba?
Abba and Preach. He's accidentally like...
But like those games, nobody has even tried to defend the visual styles of those games. But it's undeniable like how cult classics those games have become. And then from the Undertale perspective, for Sans to be in Smash Bros, even though he's a skin.
Even though he's an ugly 3D skin, I might add.
Right. They made him in 3D from a 2D game that people were unified in saying doesn't look very good. And it's like, and it just goes to show just how strong, I guess, the art direction was. Even though maybe it didn't have the most skill behind it, it had intent behind it.
It sure did. I still remember, I haven't even beaten the game, but I remember one of my favorite gags is that you're trying to hide from somebody and you just hide behind a lamp. And the lamp is shaped exactly like the outline of your body, kind of like lumpy and like the profile, you know, that they make for the character.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is so stupid, but I love it so much.
Yeah, and clever visual gags like that you can only really do like effectively in 2D.
Unless you are Double Fine, because then your games are in 3D, but they might as well be in 2D because nobody holds you to anything. Psychonauts is one of the ugliest but also most charming games I've ever seen.
It has that style that really makes it stand out, and why it should have probably won at the Game Awards, like Psychonauts 2 or
2.
You know, not who ended up winning. It
was kicking game.
What?
Deathloop.
Yeah, Deathloop. Yeah. Deathloop won everything, but I don't know, like,
because it had realistic graphics.
Let me ask y'all this. Like, in the recent past, has the visual fidelity of a game directly impacted your decision to purchase it or not? Like, not in a theoretical standpoint, but in a...
I will say yes.
Okay.
It was a combination of nostalgia, but there had been other like iterations, I guess, before this one, which didn't push me over the edge to outright buy. But a couple of years ago, Streets of Rage 4 came out. Mm-hmm. And the, I guess, gimmick, if you will, was that it was fully hand-drawn. And I didn't know how the game played. I was actually afraid that the game would be pretty clunky because a lot of things looked like it was really slow. And, you know, in order to make the animations look very good, there's some things you have to, you know, if it's going to look that good, they usually sacrifice gameplay, in my experience. And I was pleasantly surprised that it was still a very solid game. But just the hand-drawn aesthetic of that game 100% sold me before the actual gameplay did. I don't know if have you guys played any of the Streets of Rage games?
No, but I've heard you can really see the rage.
Yes, that's their tagline. you can see the rage. Yeah, I played Streets of Rage like when the original iteration, I think 1 or 2, when it was just, because that's Size Girl and Beat 'em Up. So,
oh yeah,
because to me that was like the same, like River City Ransom, Double Dragon. I guess Double Dragon Battletoads kind of was the next iteration of like from a visual aspect.
Yeah.
So okay, that's interesting. What about you, Steve?
I was gonna say no because I'm like I haven't bought a lot of games recently, blah blah blah. But if I go back a little further, I will say yes. And this is actually something I was gonna bring up.
Now's the time.
I'll mention it now. What was the game now? Octopath Traveler.
Oh.
I don't play a ton of JRPGs, and I remember thinking like, oh, okay, the story looks fine and the mechanics seem interesting, but the art really stuck out to me. And so if you're not aware, the characters and like the floors, it's a game that's ISO. It's kind of an isometric, like kind of tilted down perspective. But what they've done a couple things. All the characters are sprites, and they're kind of this 8-bit or 16-bit maybe sprite. So it's all pixelated, and some of the art is really beautiful.
The colors in that game.
But the world, they've used these 2D assets to create a 3D world. And so all of the... and they added a whole bunch of what do you call it? Focusing.
Like the tilt shift focus.
No, not the perspective. They basically made it look like a macro
diorama
shot.
Yeah.
Diorama, yeah. They look like diorama because like everything is really tightly focused. Oh God, that reminds me. I saw something yesterday that really bothered me. I'll tell you in a second. So it just made the game look like a cute little like a toy set, and all these characters are running around doing their thing. Yeah. And the third thing they did was incredible lighting and like non-pixelated lighting effects and just other effects, particle effects. And so all the moves and like the graphics, all the things that happen in the game look good. Look fantastic, but they're kind of imposed over this simpler, more charming pixel art. And I'm like, wow, that's just something about that just really strikes me. It's really gorgeous.
Yeah.
And so that was half the reason I bought the game, to be honest, because I thought it looked really good. And actually, very briefly, as an aside, I've been watching The Lincoln Lawyer on Netflix, which so far is a pretty good show. It's entertaining. But one thing that they do that really, really gets under my skin is they have like they'll break up a scene with like shots of the city or like of a neighborhood or something, but they apply this focusing effect, like a depth of field, to make it look like a macro image. Like, oh, it's a little tiny city, it's so cute. But A, it's becoming overdone because everyone's starting to do this now. Yeah. And B, they do a really ugly, like lazy filter to do it. It's like clearly computer generated because obviously it has to be. Dang. And it just looks so bad. And it doesn't add anything. It's not, this is about a lawyer. It's not about, I don't know. It's just weird. Anyway, so I was going to bring up Octopath Traveler. And my question to you guys was going to be, what is your favorite quirky, weird art style in like a game or an anime or something you've seen?
Wait, before you guys answer that question, I didn't want to answer this question for myself.
My bad.
No, it's fine. I'm happy you threw it out there. Actually, I thought about this because I personally haven't bought a game, I think from just because like, oh man, that looks really pretty or cool. But I have chose to play specific games because I knew or thought to myself that it might visually attract Shailene to pay attention to it. If that makes sense. Because, I want her to watch me play games and like I can tell like there's certain games that I feel like if I play, she'll be more invested or interested in. Just from like a glance, maybe the story, like what game was I playing recently that she was kind of heavily involved in? I can't remember what story. Oh, God of War. She was really like, God of War looks incredible. And I think it was so cinematic in the way that they did all the shots and the visuals. I think really brought her into the world to like watch alongside of me. And one game that I got early in our marriage that I was like, ooh, I want to play this because I want Shailene to kind of watch it was Journey. And I think Journey is one of those games that, yeah, not the highest fidelity graphics per se, but it's such an artistic approach, and it feels like you're kind of looking at a painting, like a moving painting. And I remember starting to play it because because it's a short game if you just do in one sitting. And she would just come in and watch me play it, and she was talking to her mom, my mother-in-law, on the phone, and she's like, this game is so weird. Like, they're doing this and like, but and once again, this is a game that doesn't have any dialogue. That's just chirps and chips and all that. And just a long scarf kind of game. But she was very heavily invested. And I thought, okay, I think this game, it'll catch your eye, you know? So, I had it for free because it was on PlayStation Plus, but it did determine what game I was going to play because of the visuals, what I thought would draw her in, you know? So that's the answer to my question. But what was your question again, Steve?
My question was, what are some of your favorites in terms of like quirky or weird art styles? Maybe things that aren't as popular or aren't as, pop culture-y. And not just in games, but, if there's an anime you really liked or a movie or something.
Oh, now you're going that route. Ooh. Just open up I can
let's start. We can start in video games, and if you really want to, you can.
I can immediately think of a game that comes to me that I wish they would either remake or I don't know, reboot or something. Because it was such a great game and the visual style was so cool. Was a Beautiful Joe.
Oh yeah.
It does look really interesting.
It had a very cool like comic book.
Loved those games.
Comic book, but like old school movie. Like it was super cool how they did everything, the way that sound effects showed up, how their art design, it was like the Dark Souls of 2D games.
Side scrolling.
Yes.
But like before Cuphead, there was Beautiful Joe.
Yeah, and I mean games, way back in the day were all hard. So like Mega Man. But like this generation, which was the GameCube era, games were like a little bit easier, And this game was brutal, man. Unforgiving checkpoints, crazy hard, normal enemies. Like it was crazy. But yeah, like just the way that they did things, like and it was like a fixed camera because it was a 2D side scrolling, but like how they decided where to set the position of the camera, like how things would move across the screen, attacks, like everything about it was beautiful to me. And this is on the GameCube,
or was it beautiful?
It was beautiful. It was beautiful. And this is on the GameCube, which wasn't necessarily known for its graphical fidelity. Well, I guess maybe
it was pretty strong compared to the other.
Yeah, during that time. Yeah. But it was great. It was beautiful. And the game was fun. It's one of those games that I kind of wish I still owned. I never bought it. I only rented it and borrowed it from a friend. But I wish I owned it.
Should have kept their copy.
Yes, I know they did. It was such a fun game, such a cool game, and it was beautiful. That's really what immediately when I thought of games that are unique.
And it had the most. I mean, like parry systems and stuff aren't unique, but the way they handled it, where you had the slow mo, but because it was in 2D, you weren't just like you didn't slow down everybody and then run around in Bayonetta or something where slow motion affects everybody, but it was you pretty much only affected yourself with the slow mo, and then you could dodge stuff or do like attacks. It was more similar to like the dodge system in Breath of the Wild. It was really similar to that.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it
super
was
satisfying.
And it was super cool because every enemy type you had to like, do I dodge? Do I jump? Do I, and how you had to do it in combination to finally get an opening to attack them in that slow. It was so cool and unique, and the visuals just was just made it beautiful, just delicious.
He just kissed his microphone. So I actually want to make a comment before I answer your question about. So when you were talking about Octopath Traveler and them using the octometric perspective, which is what they should have called it octometric. They missed the marketing opportunity. But anyway,
octotunity.
Octo-exactly. So, what you had me thinking about was...
Wouldn't it be oct-exactly? Anyway.
Exacto is what you're trying to say, boys.
Exactly.
I don't know what you're thinking.
So, Elden Ring, somebody made a mod that put the camera perspective in a similar way to Octopath, where it was
I did see that.
Extremely pulled out and the character was super tiny, and it looks incredible. It doesn't look very playable, but it's super interesting to see. Like, it reminds me of those old point and click games, because it's just how there's no way you can do combat when you can barely see your character. But I guess just the attention to detail they put into all these things that you'll never see at that distance was amazing. And then seeing the big hulking enemies where you could see their whole body from the top was just, it's mind blowing. So I think somebody's going to come out with a game like that pretty soon.
Yeah.
I'd have to
I mean, it'd be cool. I will say the person who did that also, after they set the camera up and they recorded the footage, I think they went back and in post, they lowered the frame rate to make the characters look more like it's stop motion, which is a really gorgeous effect. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But they probably wouldn't play the game like that, and I wouldn't want to either.
Bad time. Look at this. But as far as quirkiness in a game, I guess it's more of a novelty because I haven't really been able to experience it quite the same in other mediums. What's it called? I've been sitting here trying to think of it. When games use live action video. Is it an LMV?
Now you messed me up because I literally was about to say it. Gosh,
I know you were.
Man,
I had to mess you up too.
I was literally about to say the acronym, and now I don't know. Now I have to look it up. Thank you.
I guess we'll never know.
No, that's Full Metal
FMV.
FMV. Yeah. Thank you. Full Metal Alchemist.
Full motion video.
Full Metal Alchemist. Yeah.
Full FM.
Full motion alchemist.
Yes, FMVs.
It's a racing game based on. Okay. So what I was thinking of is the FMVs in VR are an experience. Because I played FMVs on a screen before, and just having it to where you can look in the 3D environment, it still has its jank. And if you look straight down, everything gets really weird. But if you pay attention to what you're looking at in VR in those FMV games, it's crazy. I've done a couple where it's face your fears, and they bring you up to these really the top of these high mountains and stuff where you're looking over cliffs. And I think that's a really novel. It's barely a game. Arguably, it's more of, I guess, a cinematic sort of experience. So I guess it still fits in what we're talking about. But those are probably one of the more interesting things that I want someone to figure out how to make it more fun and engaging, whatever that means. Arbitrarily make it more fun for me. But
speaking of VR, were you gonna?
No, you good.
I assumed you were done.
Yeah, you go ahead.
All right, you're done. All right. So speaking of VR, I was just thinking about this, and I'm like, most VR games are. Well, maybe not. I guess I would say most VR games are celebrated for being photorealistic or adjacent to that. Mm-hmm. But I feel like the real joy of it, because no matter what, it's going to be super immersive if you can look around and look at your hands and see the perspective in 3D. But I mean, I feel like the goal of VR isn't just to immerse us in a world that looks like the one we already live in, but to immerse us in new worlds. Yeah. And so I want to be in a game that has some sort of crazy graphic situation in VR. That sounds enticing to me.
Basically, you want to throw up all over yourself when you go in there and you realize, there's a reason the human eye sees the world like it does, because you just.
Well, I mean, I don't think that would make you sick. Like, obviously, motion sickness is a concern, but I don't think you can get like saturation sickness from there's too much neon in this cyberpunk VR game.
I don't know, man. From my personal experience in VR, like using the low level and then using like something like PSVR or something, like just how images appear on the lens seems to have an impact. Like I don't know how to describe it. And maybe Kyle, maybe I'm wrong, but personally, like if a game had like weird, like visual, like for example, I was playing a game and it was like glitching and like random things would pop in or pop out. And
that sounds awful.
And it was like, it was complete. I don't even know if disorienting is the word. It just off-putting.
Yeah, because everything just seems wrong. But no, I get what you're saying. Like, because even if you're not wearing the headset right and things are just a little bit blurry, even that really can jack you up and make you just feel sick. So, yeah, stuff moving out of, or something that moves you, the character, like moves your position,
bro.
Stuff like that. Yeah. So, I don't want to play any flashing light simulators in VR.
Flashing light simulator. Welcome to Flashing Light Simulator.
Epilepsy simulator.
Like they wouldn't call it epilepsy simulator because that way they wouldn't get sued. They're like, no, it's a flashing light simulator. We're just simulating what it's like to have a lot of flashing lights that affect your frontal cortex in a way that like
no warnings.
So I was recently on a family vacation and we went to a museum of, it was an optical illusion museum in Florida.
Ooh.
And it was kind of disappointing because it was less a museum and more like a 35, 40 minute, tour. It was a very small building is what I'm getting at. But the optical illusions were very cool. And they had that one tunnel you go in and the walls are spinning around you. And you have to walk down the tunnel. It's like a tube. Yeah, the tube is rotating. And so this is completely off topic and maybe not even a big deal, but to me it was a big deal. You walk in, you're like, oh, it's spinning. Oh, it's creepy. But if you like stop walking for like a second or two and just kind of look ahead, suddenly it like clicks in your brain and suddenly like it feels like the bridge is moving. And I was like, oh, and nothing changed except my perspective. And suddenly it was very off-putting and very unpleasant. So
no, that reminds me of, one day we brothers all have to go to Japan. But, first I got to tell you the story how this happened because I know this is off topic, but this is a hilarious story. So we're in Japan. It's myself, Marcus, and Tim, one of our other friends. And Tim, he was living in Indonesia and he flew over to join us in Japan, me and Marcus. So we're going around town. I can't remember where we went. It wasn't Akihabara. We were somewhere else. I think we were in Akihabara. But anyway, there was this giant Ferris wheel, right? That's what it's called, right? The one that goes around. Yeah, right? So we got on the Ferris wheel, overlooks Tokyo. Such a great experience, really fun. And we got off the Ferris wheel and there was like this art exhibit happening. Like, it's like a permanent art exhibit. And I talk about it all the time. But it's like pretty expensive. So we weren't planning to go, but we were just walking over there. And we walk over there. And just for context, for anybody who doesn't know what I look like, or Marcus or Tim, I'm a Black American. I'm a Jamaican American. Marcus is a Black American and Tim is a white American, right? So we're walking toward this art exhibit just to see what it is. And as we approach, there's like these guys standing near what would be the entrance to this art museum, like kind of looking around, kind of confused. And then they walk up to us and go, "Hey, do you guys speak English?" and
thank God.
And I was so tempted to go, "Nani?"
Oh man, you should have.
What kind of a sin? But I was like, "No, I'm not gonna play. I'm not gonna play with these guys." I said, "Yeah, we speak English." They're like, "Awesome. We've been looking for people who speak English." And they're like, "Hey, like one of our friends couldn't show up to go to this art exhibit, so we have like 2 tickets or something to go to this art exhibit, and we don't want to waste it, so we wanted to give it to somebody, but nobody we can't figure out who speaks English to give it to and explain to.
Snap.
So we were like, and the thing is, we weren't like planning to go, and the tickets were like solidly like $50 or $60. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we were like, man, that's a grip. So like, me and Tim were like, kind of like, oh, that sounds cool. Marcus was like, lightly like enthused. So we decided that we'd like kind of split the last ticket, whatever. So we go. Anyway, first of all, this thing is super cool, and I wouldn't even be mad if I spent my money. Just to be real.
It was worth the $60.
There's some
ticket.
pictures on my Instagram of when I don't know. They were in my story. I might put them back up so y'all can see them. But like, it's super cool. But there's this one room that's like a whole bunch of glass. I can't even describe it. It's like a whole bunch of glass and mirrors. And it's clearly a really small room, but it gives you this feeling that you're in this like infinite space.
Oh, wow.
Like, it is so cool. Like, it's like, this is why, like, it's like, you know how some things like you can't really take a picture of to express like you can't really express spatial awareness.
Yeah,
2D,
a photo
right?
doesn't really give you a sense
it was
of the space.
so cool just to be in this space, and like everybody, like literally when I first stepped in there, Marcus was getting on me because when I stepped in there, I was like, bro, like my brain was like, what's happening? I don't like this. We need to get out of here. We're dying. And Marcus was like, chill out, bro. Like,
we're dying.
Like, it messed with my head so much, but it was such a cool, like, and to me, like, that's the like essence of like a visual experience, you know. I know we're kind of off topic now, but like, I don't know. You just reminded me of that, Steve.
Yeah. You could just pretend like you didn't jump those guys outside and steal the tickets, but that's fine.
You speak English? Yeah, then you know what I'm doing to you. Give me your money.
I think the actual phrasing was English. Do you speak it?
English. Do you speak it?
Say Nani to me one more time.
But
mirrors are wild.
Yeah.
Man, what are mirrors? How do they work?
What are mirrors?
Oh.
Jeez.
So one thing I will say that's kind of consistent across games, no matter the fidelity, or inconsistent I should even say, is how they handle mirrors and reflective surfaces.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's gotten a little bit more, like you can almost reliably expect a mirror to reflect something in games nowadays just because of like, I guess, processing power, whatever you want to say. But like back in the day, no matter how good a game looked, they would either smash all the mirrors or have this really weird gray hue, or just not even care and just not show a reflection.
The mirror is like dirty.
Yeah.
I'm
not
so
too dirty.
Do you have like a game in mind? Because as soon as you said mirrors, a game came to mind.
Hold that thought for a second. I just want to say, yes, I agree with you. Actually, I was playing a game recently, and actually, it was Fortnite too, where the mirrors work in Fortnite, but it's still like a little like
they're really distorted.
But I watched a GDC about one of the teams who did like mirror reflections in their game. And they're just talking about how ridiculously difficult it was. Like, not even just purely on like a processing power standpoint, but purely from a like computation, like make it look right. Where's the camera angle? What does a human expect when they see a mirror at this? It's like so crazy how like, and this is why my heart goes to every person who's a game developer, especially those who work in the graphics, trying to make those things work. Like, the amount of effort you put in for a small little thing that is kind of inconsequential is incredible, you know? So mirror in game development, like for engines, like making them from scratch, one of the hardest things, you know? Light reflection, which is crazy. So anyway.
Yeah, because that's like a level design thing. Like if something's out of place and that breaks the immersion, someone notices that. So yeah, I mean, I think that's why it's made such a big impression on me over the years. So no, I can't think of, I want to say there were mirrors in like Halo 2 or something that I noticed that I didn't have a reflection in, but I can't think of one on the spot.
So I didn't think about it, I guess, when I was playing it as a kid, but I recently replayed the GameCube version of Metroid Prime. I was emulating it, and I don't know if they just didn't have it in the Wii version or what. Because after I got the Wii version, I basically never played the GameCube version again. But I was emulating, and I was playing Metroid Prime, and there's like 2 or 3 objects in the whole game that are technically mirrors, but it's really funny. They're basically domes. So if you were to think of them as a mirror, they should be distorting everything and making it look super weird.
Yeah.
But when you walk up to it, you see Samus. She's not distorted, and she's not correctly oriented. So like if you turn a little bit, like she's still facing you, like flatly facing the you, I guess.
Oh.
And she also, if you back away and you kind of see more of her, you can tell that she's in a T pose. They literally just had a Samus model in a space somewhere, just
it was
T
probably
and
cheaper.
sliding her around to match your movements.
They were like, you know what? Nobody like that's so slick.
It is.
That's a very, I would say, if you don't have the software and the rendering techniques, like, and you have a little bit of extra hardware, computational power to make that happen, like, yeah, just have a mirror realm exist behind the window and just reflect, or just move all the characters like your character.
Yeah, mirror the room, and then when they leave the room, just remove it from memory. And
yeah, so they had enough memory, I guess, to just mirror Samus and not even really in the room.
With that, you made me think of 2 games, actually really oldish games, that did that same technique. One was Super Mario 64 in the mirror room. Like, yeah, I think you just made a joke about the mirror dimension is like real in that game.
Yeah,
yeah,
might as well be. Yeah.
It's a separately modeled, like they've done the boundary break thing, and they did a similar thing in the 3DS port for Super Mario 64. Where they have a separate model. But then another game, and I might have this wrong, I want to say it was one of the Kingdom Hearts, where there was a reflective floor that you're running on top of, and they just put another model underneath you.
That's cool.
It's clever, man. It's clever. That's so... I think, if I recall...
It's a nice attention to detail, and when games didn't have reflections, Like, why would they go out of their way to do that? Just to stunt on us, pretty much.
If I recall correctly, and maybe I might be completely wrong, and somebody's going to... I know one thing I'm kind of sort of right about, but we'll see. Metal Gear Solid Sons of Liberty, I think there was this big thing. You know how when you go in a game, like a game that has guns particularly, and you walk into like a scene that has like a bar, or like there's a bottle on a table or something like that, and you shoot it, like it's like this natural tendency. I don't know if y'all do this. There's a natural tendency for me to like shoot a random thing to see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I wonder if the glass will break, or I wonder if the box, if it'll just be a texture, or if it'll actually be a hole. So I guess when Metal Gear Solid Sons of Liberty came out, people were playing it, and this is why Kojima's the boss. So there's like this scene you walk into, and there is like a bar, and there's also a fish tank.
Mm-hmm.
And, like in this era, most bars, any like textures like that were normally just billboarded or fake or whatever.
Right.
And you shoot the bottle and it breaks. Right. And now as a player, you're like, okay, like, what can I do in here? Right. So you start messing with the environment, and things are like actually working. And the biggest one is that if you shoot the fish tank, it works like you would expect in like with fluid dynamics. Like you shoot it and water starts spewing out the bottom, and slowly you see water lowering. The fish that's in the tank is getting pushed down.
Mm-hmm.
And if you shoot another hole, more water comes out at a faster speed and a faster rate. It's crazy. And people...
That's awesome.
It blew... Like, that was, like, for a lot of people, like, that was, like, the greatest moment in gaming history. Like, shooting the fish tank. It was either Metal Gear Solid, Sons of Liberty, or... what's the game where you... Splinter Cell. It was one of those two games. I can't remember. But yeah. And then I think that one also had mirrors. Whatever game. I might be mixing up the two, but
I just thought of two more games. So really impressive GameCube games. Super Mario Sunshine as working mirrors. Remember in the beach level, there's a lot of beach levels. Whatever. It's the beach level where at one point you have these 3 mirrors with these wrigglers on them, and you have to knock the wrigglers off, and then the mirrors will point to a wriggler who's like sitting on top of the shine spray, and you have to basically point all 3 mirrors at him to bake him until he dies and then falls apart.
It's a violent
Those
game.
mirrors, yeah, weirdly violent scenes. Kind of sad. He's just sleeping up there, and you just melts him like a kid with a magnifying glass.
What game is this?
Mario Sunshine?
Yes. Okay, I was like, am I tripping? I was like, wait, I didn't hear you say Sunshine for some reason. But anyway,
Oh, my bad. Maybe I
No,
didn't.
you said it.
You
I
said
just
it. Yeah.
my
But yeah, those mirrors work, and they work. They seem like high quality, and they might just be windows into a mirror realm. But because they can rotate and shift around, I feel like there's still a lot of computation that has to go into that. So I was really impressed when I saw those a few years ago.
I forgot about that. Yes, I think those were true mirrors. I think those.
Yeah,
were
I
true
think they were.
mirrors.
And then Luigi's Mansion has 2 mirror rooms. Where you have to I think one mirror room where you have to use the mirror to see. No, sorry. They have one mirror room, and that's the only way you can see ghosts in the room is they're only visible in the mirrors.
Oh, that's a cool mechanic to use. Man.
Yeah, but they can strangle you in real life, so you have to,
Ooh.
you have to get them.
Jeez.
Yeah, I said 2 because I was thinking of a projector room, which is the same idea. Instead of a mirror, it's a projector screen, and you have to look at the shadows.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that in many games.
No, yeah,
That's super impressive.
So you said something earlier, Steve. You were saying like not just games, but other media that has interesting visual approaches,
like Arcane.
Yeah, like Arcane is definitely one that comes to my mind. But actually, one that is kind of surprise. Okay, so there's 2 that come to mind. Of more recently, I digging deeper in my brain, I probably think of more. But from an anime standpoint, Doro Hodoro. That visual style is markedly ugly. Like the characters are all kind of like just not appealing enough. Like there's a weird thing about them, but I feel like that art aesthetic really lends to the show's like what it's going for, like this weird alternate world where magic, like basically it's like discrimination.
The manga is also like really filthy and dirty, so it does make sense.
Yeah, so it really does well. And then another anime which I encourage everybody to watch, especially if you're looking for something that'll make you smile and go, oh man, is Kotaro Lives Alone. Kotaro Lives Alone has this aesthetic where, like normal anime character eyes, right? So some characters have that.
That is weird eyes.
Yeah. So he has what would be, for, trying to describe this to somebody who's just listening, it's like a vertical slotted eye. It's kind of like a goat eye, kind of.
Lizard eye?
Yeah, lizard or goat eye. Like it just doesn't look right on a human. But humans in the world have varieties of eyes. Like Kotaro has like a true vertical eye bar, like for his eyes, and his eyes are really big. And there's another character who kind of has like, I would almost say like a tip of a knife blade eye. So it's kind of like Kotaro's, but it kind of tapers off at the bottom. And then there's people with normal anime eyes. So there's like this weird dynamic that not really clear why people have different eyes. But at first, I didn't like the aesthetic for his eyes because it was so weird and off-putting. But as you go through the show, there's so much expression that is done through his eyes. And then you start to get why his eyes look like that. And why they don't have like pupils. And then like you get to see like, it's like sometimes his eyes will have pupils, but it expresses a specific emotion at a specific time. And sometimes they'll have more than one pupil. It's a really strange aesthetic, but it's one of the coolest ways to convey emotion I've seen in like a cartoon or anime in a long time. and it's so well done. And when you see it happen, you actually like kind of feel it. You kind of feel it. It's hard to describe if you've never seen the show or watched it, but it's one of my favorite artistic approaches from a visual standpoint.
So it's like a step up from doing like the heart eyes or the dollar signs in the eyes.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a step up, and they use it in such a subtle and very well done way. Like it really expresses emotion and I don't think there's another way they could have done it. And they did such a great job. It's really good.
I remember you telling me about that show. I saw a picture of it too. Yeah, it's not quite cat eyes, but yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very off-putting.
It is.
But I guess I should watch it since you.
You and your wifey should watch it. I think y'all would love it, Steve, for sure. Y'all are anime fans, so you'll really appreciate a lot of what's happening.
You made me think of something that I think is like one of the reasons why Cartoon Network got in trouble. Like, not trouble, but people were like canceling Cartoon Network a couple of years ago because those decisions artistically for Kotaro Lives Alone sound super specific, and then the more you watch the show, it really just reinforced why they made these on the surface odd decisions. But the alternative to that, I think, is similar to what we were talking about earlier, is like efficient ways of doing things. And so Cartoon Network has been around because, they do the hand-drawn animation, and they use Flash a little bit, but generally their stuff is hand-drawn. But it was like, I think they called it the Cal Arts style.
Yeah. I was going to mention that, actually.
Yeah, where all the shows looked like they were in the same universe, being drawn by the same people. And then they even boiled down to having like very similar like comedic timing and writing. And it was just like they were just recycling the same show over and over again. They had somebody who drew like a bean because, that's like the bean head is like the aesthetic for like the kids. And then they just drew the facial features of like the four main characters of the time. So it was, what's his name? Gumball was on there. And not Curtis. What's the other one?
Curtis Lives Alone.
But anyway, it was this huge thing because, of course, when we grew up, you couldn't get two shows mixed up if you tried, just because everything was so distinct. People were just fed up that they were recycling the same stuff. But kids, have a very poor taste, and so it worked. It was all for money and efficiency.
So there's Steven Universe.
Yeah.
I would say Gumball is different enough because of everything else they do. Like Gumball is wild.
Yeah.
Art-wise. But yeah, Steven Universe.
Clarence.
There's a new show on...
That's the one.
Clarence, okay. Yeah. People complain a lot about that. I was actually going to say that, or I was going to mention that because there's a new show that Netflix is pushing. I think it's called like Deadbeat or something. I don't know. But it's that exact style. And I'm immediately put off. I'm like, I don't want to watch this. Yeah. Not interested.
And the worst part about it to me is
the new Thundercats is also like that, which is really, really upsetting.
I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
'Cause, man.
Yeah, I guess I never I noticed it, but just kind of was like, man, I don't know what's happening here. I was old enough to be removed from Cartoon Network, but I did definitely notice that. So that's interesting. I didn't realize that there was actually people were really like, yo, this is not cool. Like this is so let me ask you this. Do you feel like the going for the cheaper, quote unquote, cheaper, more efficient art style impacted the shows in a negative way, other than it all being samey? Are the shows still good?
I couldn't tell you. I didn't watch them.
Yeah, I think I would say it negatively impacted adoption of a broader audience. The people who were going to watch that channel anyway probably weren't that, disturbed, because I guess in a way that's the content they were there for. But, anyone who does a variety, something new, wouldn't be intrigued by any of these quote unquote new shows just because they are so similar to what's already there. And it's kind of heartbreaking because, you know, the style, it became popular because people liked it, you know, and so for it to just get killed that way, it really sucks because it's, I mean, on the surface, like it's a pleasing art style, like it's soft, it fits the genres, I guess, of the cartoons they were making. So in context, you know, if it was intentional, it made sense, but they were just, you know, showing just how simply they could apply that style to everything in the same way that people are just egregiously overutilizing photorealism because it's easy.
Yeah. I think that for me, it implies that if the style is the same, then the storytelling and the humor and like the setting are going to be the same too, you know? So for me, it puts me off because I'm like, there's also, I think, an implication of like maybe a more, I don't know, just like a style of storytelling. Maybe it's like for younger audiences. Something about it just seems like, oh, that's not really for me. Mm-hmm. I'm not interested.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think you're right because I've never thought about it. But like if you think about something like Futurama and Simpsons, right? Like they seem to have deliberately similar art styles. You know what I'm saying? Like it kind of lets you know, oh, you're getting into this goofy world. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like it would be hard for me to like imagine using the Simpson art style and it being like a serious drama. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and I guess overall you don't get many of those. But anyway, so yeah.
The difference is like that's like one guy and one team of people who make those shows. So that's why it's the same.
Yeah, the same studio.
And that's why it is, you know, Futurama and The Simpsons do have the same, or not the same, but like
aesthetic,
the same type of humor and the same aesthetic. And Disenchantment.
Oh
yeah,
well.
and it's a calling card, right? Like it lets you know
exactly.
It's kind of like our boy from Japan who makes great animated movies, and they're all of them are good. Princess Mononoke, Miyazaki.
Also, the guy who did Perfect Blue and Paprika, Satoshi Kon. He also has maybe not an art style, but an editing style that's very
like
very
Miyazaki is probably like the one, right? When you think of like, oh, that's a Miyazaki film.
I think of Toriyama too.
Toriyama's huge, yeah.
Oh, like Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah,
that style.
Yeah,
Dragon Ball Z, but also he did a bunch of characters in like Final Dragon Quest movies. Dragon Quest games.
Yeah,
are also Toriyama art.
Yeah, I don't know if I get a particular aesthetic from Toriyama per se, but I know it's by him. Like, I've played Dragon Quest a little bit, and I've watched quite a bit of Dragon Ball Z. I don't know if I would think to myself from a, like, thematic standpoint if they're similar, but I would just go, oh, like, these are the same art style, right?
Yeah.
Like, they are the same art style. That's what we're saying.
That's a visual.
But that's what I'm saying. Difference between like The Simpsons and Futurama and Disenchantment. They kind of all have the same thematic feel, right? Like kind of irreverent, goofy.
Okay,
like
sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like you could pretty much guess what kind of humor is going to be in any of those shows,
hijinks,
right? You know, a little bit of adult humor, you know, but like Toriyama, I don't necessarily think to myself, oh, like this visual aesthetic is going to lend to a certain type of, you know, maybe
if we were Japanese and we were more in the culture, we would know the differences. But to me, I'm just like, oh, Toriyama stuff is very Japanese.
Yes, it's just art. But like Miyazaki to me, when I see his, I think whimsical, magical, like, you know, like it has a very like, it's going to be very, you're not going to, it's otherworldly. Almost like it's this world, but like alternate, you know, because pretty much all of his movies, now I think about it, pretty much fall into that realm.
Like you could imagine if you watched Mushishi and it was done in the style of Miyazaki's films, you wouldn't be surprised.
Yes. But there would also be like a little bit more lightheartedness, right? Like,
of course, yeah,
right?
There'd be like a child instead of a grown man.
But exactly, and that's the Miyazaki thing. You feel like there's a little bit of like hope and wonder.
Whimsy.
Wonder, yeah.
Right? But Mushishi has a lot of wonder. I don't know if it has much hope.
Hopeless?
It's not hopeless.
It's
It's
just
just
real.
It's very chaotic neutral.
It's
It's
real.
like the world is scary and sometimes you die.
Yeah.
But at least it's beautiful.
It just feels real. It's just like, oh yeah, like you just happen to run into the wrong Mushishi. So this made me think, like, we've talked a lot about like video games and anime and
Do
like
we?
cartoons,
Mm-hmm.
you know, as far as like how their visual style affects. What about movies? Like, I've been sitting here for a moment trying to think about a movie that had an art style that really, like, I think one that I think Steve
Like a
will
live
say.
action movie? Or
I guess any of them.
Yeah, I guess live action. Yeah, makes sense because Miyazaki is like not live action. But yeah, let's say non-animated for a moment, right?
Sure.
You know, even TV show. Are there any that y'all can think of? I feel like one that's going to come from Steve Scott Pilgrim, that has like a visual aesthetic that's stood out to you, you know?
So I really like, I guess if you want to call it not the run of the mill, but like the really popular Bollywood films. I think like the way they use practical effects and the writing and just how everything's just over the top. Like I appreciate, if ever they use CG, that it's very rare, because I don't know, it's just a fun ride when you're just like, oh, they actually did that, you know. And so that's what comes to mind for me, as far as, because whenever I see a trailer for one of those movies, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna watch that. So
I've only ever seen like Singham and maybe one
Sing-
other Bollywood movie.
They always are super epic seeming to me. And
Yeah,
I've seen
they're so
quite a
good.
few, but like they're always super epic. Like
always.
like, and then that saturation of the, like how they do some of the saturation is a little bit different than what you'd see in Hollywood, which would have more, I don't want to say muted, but like not like darker tones.
Mhm.
Like it's very different. It's interesting.
And the fact that so many of them are musicals, or like they have songs that play, and it's not just like throwaways songs. Like it's songs that you want to listen to outside of the movie. Characters are singing, which seems weird at first, like, because I know it's very rare in, I don't know, you wouldn't call it American movies, but I understand why we don't do it, because it'd be awkward, I guess. But I think it's like it's a beautiful. It's almost like watching a stage play, the way that they handle it, and then mixed in with all the action and stuff. It's like it's just a combination of, if you just want to sit down for 2.5 hours and be enticed by something, like any of these movies will scratch an itch. You just sit there long enough.
Yeah, because they're long movies, right?
They are very, very long movies. They don't cut anything out.
It's always the extended edition. Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing. If we're talking about live action movies, that we're no longer talking about art styles. Now we're getting into more nuanced, detailed, questions about the movie. Like I think up to this point we've been taking pretty broad strokes. Like, oh, it's low poly, or it's pixelated, or this or that. And so I know less. I feel like the question of a movie's art style and the saturation and the way that it's directed and stuff, it's all very well established and understood by movie buffs, and I'm probably not the one to talk to about that. But I can make
the
I can make shallow comments.
The question wasn't what art style in the movie do you like. It was what movies from a visual standpoint stood out to you in a good or a bad way, right? Like what, like
Sure.
when you go like, oh man, like when I think about this movie, like I love the visuals, like one that stands out for me definitely is the first Doctor Strange.
Oh yeah, a lot of cool effects.
I think that's actually the reason I bought the movie, is because to me it's such a visual like smorgasbord. There's so many cool patterns and colors, and
they went crazy.
It's like I've seen the second one, and I don't feel that they came as heavy from the visual standpoint. But like the first one really felt like they were trying to show you the magic, like and like there's a lot of what's the fractals and all these like cool color. It just, to me, like I just remember being in the theater and being like, this is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen.
He was crying.
Like, and I immediately got the DVD once I had the opportunity.
Weeping fractals.
He was telling the ushers, give me a copy of this movie right now.
My tears were falling in the Fibonacci sequence, like they were just... but
there's a scene in... Sorry, I'm not even going to finish that thought. Go on.
I mean, you started it.
Wait, is it a spoiler? What were you...
No, it's not a spoiler. It's just so far. It's such a... Whatever, I'll say it. I was in Star Trek The Next Generation, one of the main characters is an android. His name is Data. And there's a scene where he basically outs another character who we thought was human. And I was like, oh, she's an android. And they're like, how did you know she was an android? And it's like, because I was watching her blink and she was blinking according to like the Fibonacci sequence or something.
Oh, snap. Got caught slipping. Got him slipping.
It's like she definitely doesn't need to blink. She just does it to appear.
You know, like the next programmer's like, change. Like noting it. Yeah. Blinking from...
Add one to the sequence. It's not enough. It's not fooled. Doctor Strange looked really good. What else did I like? I like stop motion movies.
Ooh, really? Yeah. Which ones?
I guess we're talking about non-animated.
Wallace and Gromit.
I mean, that's not an animated movie. That's like practical effects.
It's stop motion animation. It still counts.
It's technically animated, but you're right. Fair enough. Yeah. So Kubo and the Two Strings is one of my favorite movies.
It's very good looking, beautiful.
Oh
movie.
yeah, I need to see that one. It does look very good.
It's gorgeous. Yeah. The Lego movies. At least the first one is incredible. It looks so good.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not 100% sure. I've heard both sides, but I've been told that those were actually made in 3D software, and they didn't actually.
Yes, those are. It's not stop motion. That's 3D animated.
False
movie.
Motion.
I mean, it's convincing though. Like the textures are spot on.
Yeah, exactly.
So you question it the whole movie.
Yeah.
So that's a gorgeous movie. You mentioned Scott Pilgrim. Obviously, you're right. That's a fantastic one. I would be into it. The one I will add on top of Scott Pilgrim is The Fountain. The use of light and shadow, the use of perspective to like draw the three stories together, the use of like the way that you kind of move between the three stories based on scene transitions and things. Like, it's just a fantastic movie.
I think one movie that stands out and it's also like, this is a gimme movie of like from a visual standpoint. It's
Sunshine.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of disrespectful because it's like we just put Sunshine in every category: best writing, best musical direction, best
sci-fi movie, best use of what's the guy's name? Murphy?
That actor, the best use of
Eddie Murphy
of Sandman, whatever his character was in Batman.
Scarecrow.
Scarecrow, I call him Sandman. But I was gonna say the movie 300.
Okay, yeah, that's really good too.
Like, that was one of the coolest, like how they use zoom, how they use like focus. Like, that was Zack Snyder, right? Like, that was one of the coolest. Like, seeing, it's just, I saw it on opening night with a group of friends in college. And like, we knew it was coming out. We heard, like, it looks super cool. Man, we were just, our expectations of what they were going to do was just like crazy. Like, there's a scene where he throws a javelin at Xerxes. And man, the way they did that scene, and like, it was so cool. Like, just he's loading up in it, and he throws it, and it follows the spear through the crowd. And it comes across, and then Xerxes like sees it at the last moment, gets hit, and then it slow-mo's on Xerxes getting hit. Like, it was so crazy how they composed those shots. It was...
Well, you can't bring up Zack Snyder and not talk about Sucker Punch.
Oh, Sucker Punch, man. That's a movie that I don't know if I'll ever watch again. I was completely not ready for what it was about to be. I was
I heard it, but I haven't seen it.
It's irreverent is the best word to
Irreverent? I wouldn't say it's irreverent.
Oh.
You wouldn't say it's irreverent.
It's not funny at all.
Maybe I'm thinking of wrong movie. Sucker Punch.
Sucker Punch is the movie about the young woman who her father abuses her and sets her up to be.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
To live in a mental institution.
I'm thinking of another movie. Hold on. Let me see if I can remember. Not Sucker Punch.
What are you thinking?
It might be by the same director. Give me a second. I'll think of it later. But continue.
I'll keep talking about Sucker Punch. Yeah. So it's about this girl who's living in a mental asylum, but she's been unjustly put there by her abusive father or stepfather or somebody. And she's basically waiting to be killed. Like they're gonna not kill her, to be lobotomized. Meanwhile, she kind of like she has like a fantasy world where she's not in a mental asylum. She's actually in a brothel, and she's trapped there as a dancer, and she's like learning how to dance to get away from her problems. And then when she's getting away from her problems, when she's dancing, let me back up a little. She has like a plan to escape, but so the plan will be like, oh, steal this lighter or find these keys or do this or that. But they frame all of the high tension moments as these like high fantasy battles. So her and the other girls will be like soldiers fighting their way through like World War II with zombies. Or there's a scene where she's fighting a giant like demon shogun by herself, and it's all set to music, and it's all very flashy and very stylized and very cool. And a lot of people don't like the movie for various reasons. There's some questionable scenes in it, I would say, but in terms of style, it's fantastic. It's a really cool movie.
That's an interesting concept. So it's kind of like a cutaway thing to.
She'll be like, she'll be swaying to some music, and then it'll like zoom into her face and zoom out again, and she's like somewhere else. She and her girls are in like a bunker, and the music's playing, and all this stuff is happening, and sometimes it'll cut to the real world where they're trying to get the keys or whatever, and then maybe a guard walks into the room that they didn't expect, and so in the fantasy, like some new problem appears and they have to fight this new problem. And so it's like hyper violent in the fantasy world, but in the real world it's not, it doesn't actually correspond to them like shooting people or anything like that. And then afterwards they'll be like, wow, your dancing was incredible. Like how, we don't actually see her dancing. We just imagine that it was like mind blowing, I guess.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't seen that. I have not seen Sucker Punch, but if Zack Snyder always, he'd be making things beautiful. So, okay. This is kind of random. So, I couldn't remember the name of the movie. But I was like, I can remember the actresses, like the faces of the actors and actresses. And eventually I remembered that Nicolas Cage was in the movie. Right? So I said, let me
search. The kid in the green outfit.
Kick-ass?
Kick butt, yeah.
Kick butt.
Didn't want to say it.
That's the title of the movie.
Guys. That's what I was thinking of whenever you said Sucker Punch.
Yeah,
because it has like a similar. The word has a similar vibe.
Yeah, similar vibe. But here's the thing. So I'm searching Nicolas Cage, and I have to take a moment, and we need to honor Nick Cage. Because this man has been in every movie.
Oh, he's in every movie.
I searched Nicolas Cage movies, and once I did that, I said, "Wait a second."
Did your computer
Nicolas Cage has been in like at least 300 movies. Man, this man has been in everything.
He does a movie a week.
Spider-Man, Teen Titans, of course. Left Behind. Oh, Left Behind is one of the best visual approaches I've ever seen.
Oh, I forgot he was in Left Behind.
Man, he's in.
He was in Knowing.
Knowing. Next.
Lord of War.
Lord of War. Yep.
Didn't he just come out with a movie? Didn't he just come out with a movie
The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent?
Where he plays himself?
Yeah, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Oh, you were saying the title of the movie, right? Oh.
Yeah.
He's in Jiu-Jitsu, which has nothing to do with Jiu-Jitsu, by the way. So anyway.
I've never heard of it.
And he's in Cruise.
Yeah.
Did someone say Ghost Rider already?
No,
Ghost
I didn't say
Rider. I
Ghost
forgot
Rider.
about that. Like, not all his movies are on here. I'm looking at the page on Google, and there's so many. But yes, Kick Butt was the movie I was thinking about.
Wicker Man.
Wicker Man, the OG, where he punches.
National
She's a woman in a
Treasure.
bear suit.
National Treasure.
National
which are
Treasure.
great
How could we
movies.
forget?
National-
His most, I would say, probably like his most palatable character.
He still is somewhat annoying, like a jerk in that movie. Like there's scenes.
Yeah,
where,
but like
Because he's a know-it-all.
if you
yes.
watched him in National Treasure, you wouldn't understand how much of a crazy person he is in like every other movie.
like
That's a
Con
fair
Air,
point.
Con Air, like his haircut, everything about him in Con Air is like, oh my gosh, this guy.
What's the movie where he becomes a vampire?
What?
I don't know that one. Is that Dying Light?
I don't know. It's like what's one of his older movies?
Dying of the Light.
He wasn't he in Pig?
Yeah.
Wasn't that his Pig in Pig?
Man, I know he's in Rock, right? The Rock.
What's The Rock?
It's like this movie about this like there's like this vial of like poison or something, and it's in a prison. Oh my goodness. It's a good movie. It's a very good movie. It has like Sean Connery in it. It's an older movie. It's like in the 90s. I saw a long time ago.
Wow.
Is Wicker Man the one about the bees?
Yes.
Bees.
Not the bees. Not
Not
the
the
bees.
bees.
Wickerman is
Also,
punches a
it's
woman
also
in the
about
face.
it's also about how it got burned.
Mm.
Huh?
How to get burned? How to get burned? How to get burned?
Oh, gosh.
There's so many moments in that movie. Yeah, he's in so much stuff. But anyway, that was the movie I was thinking of, Kick Butt.
Okay, no, I was talking about Sucker Punch. Very different movie.
That came to mind first when I heard of Sucker Punch.
I don't think that generic superhero named movie with Nick Cage was that visually appealing. I mean, it was. She had purple hair.
No, I wasn't saying it was visually appealing. That's just.
Oh,
the
I know.
movie.
I know you weren't saying that, but I'm just commenting. Like, I feel like that's a pretty generic looking movie.
Yeah, it didn't really do much. A lot of it was implied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fight scene was cool. She was the choreography was good, but that's not what we're talking about.
So I might be making an opinion that's not popular, but
Cancel
remember
this man.
the movie Avatar, right?
All right, and that's our show today.
Which one? The
Avatar.
one we like or the one we don't like?
Avatar,
The movie.
not The Last Airbender. Avatar,
Yeah.
the movie.
With the blue people.
Yes.
See, aren't you glad that I clarified? Kyle thought you meant Avatar.
Yeah, I would say Avatar: The Last Airbender because I want to be very specific when I'm talking about it because now The Last Airbender is
playing any games.
We gotta do Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Underscore.
But it was so interesting because this is also what kicked off the 3D glasses craze for a while, and and it's such a great movie.
Kids.
It also, I think, started the 3-hour plus movie being okay. So
I don't think it kicked off the 3D glasses. They were around for a long time.
absolutely,
It reinvigorated them.
absolutely was.
And
the
they
beginning
came
of-
out with the cooler ones that didn't look like they
Yes.
weren't the white ones with the red.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
It absolutely set the Hollywood 3D movie. That was the beginning of that era. Like because
I don't know, man. I feel like Spy Kids.
no,
Maybe I'm thinking. Maybe you know what? I'll say this. Maybe you're right, but before that, it was just kids movies and like cheap ones that were going for.
yeah,
3D.
there's movies with the little
It was
the red and blue, but like the new age of like the thick lens, the polarized, whatever they were. I can't say that.
They use it's a really cool technology. Actually, they use circular polarization.
Yes.
Which is hard to describe, but it's a thing.
So
We're here now.
he
Describe
started
it.
out because essentially James Cameron paid for that to happen. Like he paid for the cameras to be made, and the movie had
He went
such
all in.
Yeah, James Cameron is crazy, and basically everybody was like, cool, we're going to borrow your cameras now, James Cameron. And also the reels, you needed to have double the length or double the size, the reels and stuff. So it was seemingly economically infeasible, but he basically started. So anyway, I say the reason I bring up Avatar, is because to me, that's one of those movies that people talk about from a visual stunning aspect. But most of that movie to me was like Uncanny Valley. I can't really.
Really?
Yeah, like they did a great job, but like it always like characters. There's a lot of characters in that movie that made me feel uncomfortable. like I could tell. Like for example, when Sigourney Weaver gets into her avatar
Pod person.
like that made me feel really uncomfortable. Like like because Sigourney Weaver is such a high bill actress that they weren't gonna just like take away her major features to like make her look. They really wanted her to look like Sigourney Weaver, and I was like, no, thank you. You know, like not that like it just didn't settle with me. And then like throughout the movie, like this is the beginning, like not the beginning, but like I understand it. 3D movies, mixing it with like real I guess real life, and it was just a lot of like to me. I'm seeing the seams because I'm that kind of guy watching the movie. So I just tried to not be a buzzkill for most people because I thought it was a great movie. It was interesting. I thought it was really cool. The stuff they went through, the 3D effects were really cool. But for me, it was a movie that I'm like, oh, like that was cool. But like people were like, this is the most beautiful movie I've ever seen in my life. And all I could think about was Sigourney Weaver's face in that blue. like the nightmare fuel. Like nothing against Sigourney Weaver. It's just
I kind of want to watch it again. I haven't seen it in a long time.
Yeah, it was a good movie. I kind of share the sentiment, and I think it's just because I also have the sentiment that about photorealistic graphics in general. And so yeah, when something CG on screen is next to a person, then it doesn't matter how real it looks, it's always going to feel a bit off. And so I definitely felt that about the movie. When everything in the scene was CG, yeah, I'll agree and say everything looked immaculate. It's a gorgeous movie. The lighting and stuff, the art direction, all the greenery. But I feel like a lot of it was also hype, just because a lot of people wanted to like the movie, and it wasn't a bad movie. And it was like the biggest budget animated film, whatever you want to call it. It had a lot of impressive visuals, but I'll agree that I've never truly understood why people regard it as the best looking movie. Because I feel like a lot of things looked just as good, but just had different, material. They're different content. Like it wasn't in a dense forest all the time.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I think technically it was above and beyond every other animated movie at the time, and probably still above and beyond other movies now.
I mean,
like maybe some things were still uncanny, but like they pushed
the envelope.
They pushed the envelope and face animation. A lot of the facial animations are like incredible, and they basically invented new technology for that. For the stereoscopic, they pushed technology for the 3D, recording. They did that. That wasn't something that had been done before. The way they did it.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's not perfect, but like at the time it was insane.
Yeah.
I would have to rewatch it, but I remember being blown away. And I watched it in 3D and I was like, wow, this was a much better experience than other 3D movies I've seen.
I think it definitely had that going for it too. The fidelity they did not miss, in my opinion. But I think a lot of it was more on that side of it, the technical side of it. Like it was an impressive movie, 100%. But was it like noticeably just this holistically better viewing experience that deserved the accolades that it got? I'm not sold on that. All the innovations and stuff, I 100% agree with. The way that they've just transformed the industry by the stuff they did while making the movie is that stuff's cool. But the actual movie itself, like the final product, I don't know. I'm not sold on it.
You know what's crazy? So recently, I don't know if you guys saw, but there's a new trailer for Avatar 2. Mm-hmm. And people are complaining about the water. They're like, look at all the practical water they're using. They can't even get the CGI for the water.
Yeah.
Bro, all the water is CGI.
Mm-hmm.
Everything in the trailer is CGI. And it looks so real that people are complaining that they didn't bother
That's
to
why.
CGI
That's why you
the
don't
water.
listen to the internet. Just shut up.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
the
it's so cool.
Corridor guys actually did a video about it.
Yeah.
yeah. I think to me, and I think Kyle is basically summarizing my feelings about it. Like I absolutely, like to me, I absolutely saw. I remember from a video game, movie culture, like media culture, what that movie transitions to, like literally it was like the transition into the new era of movies, because length of movies, 3D,
Yeah, the length is insane.
how technology was embedded into media all changed because of James Cameron, right?
One
And
man.
I think one man's crazy vision and a lot of money, did something that would have probably taken us another decade or even more to do.
Yeah.
He literally brought the new era. But to me, like, I think being in the movie theater and seeing it, I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was great. But I think it just, to me, it just never, and maybe I can't really remember if there was a lot of hype on it before I went and saw it, but I just didn't walk away as moved as everybody around me. And maybe it's just because I played a lot of video games. So I've been seeing the progression of 3D technology for a long time and seeing like a lot of stuff happening. So I kind of knew, like, so this wasn't to me like a huge leap per se. It was just like the natural progression, but like a little bit early. Like, for example, like games looked really good at this time as well. And a lot of like movie technology uses what games did, like they kind of take stuff from games. Because games kind of are always pushing the envelope. So anyway, I don't know. It's just one of those movies that I think is just, I don't know. I thought it was nice and I thought it was a good movie and interesting and looked nice. But I just personally wouldn't put it on my top visual list.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point.
I mean, I wouldn't have either.
I think you bring up a good point. It might be what also is contributing to the stuff going on about the water in the new trailer is that, yeah, the exposure to the progression of these technologies and visuals getting better, I think it kind of desensitizes us to when something is a little bit better because it doesn't feel like that much of a leap. And so if someone who, hasn't been playing games, which I'm assuming a lot of the moviegoers at that time obviously weren't in, I guess, the know as far as how much 3D had progressed. And so they were really impressed. While, yeah, someone who's playing, games at that time or even watching movies, I guess, that were close as far as visually would have seen it as comparable, to something they've experienced before versus, oh, this is completely new. Because that's how it seemed like it was being treated. Like no one had ever made a 3D face before that looked more convincing than the last one we saw. And it's like, no, this is what happens every time. Someone always pushes the envelope and improves, or not always, but there's just typically somebody who comes afterwards that improves upon what we saw last time. And so why is this so much more, impressive?
Yeah. Yeah. So just to kind of, I know we were talking about real life action movies and, I guess we are kind of close on the time. So I just want to be short on this one. But I want to throw this out there because I feel like I'm surprised none of us brought it up. But Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse?
Into the Spider-Verse?
Like talking about a visual.
That's just implied.
It's just implied when you think of greatness. Visual greatness.
They made their own new style. It looks gorgeous.
It was a feast. Nicolas Cage was in it.
It was a feast for the eyes. Nicolas Cage was in that movie too. Oh my God, you're right.
Yes, he was in that movie, yeah.
He was Spider-Man Noir. And it wins everything. There's no point in bringing it up.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
I do want to take a moment to appreciate some very bad CGI.
CGI or just like graphics?
Both. So in a high budget film that was pushed as being this big thing, and it was all over the internet. So I'm just going to bring it up because I want to give it the same amount of attention and respect that we gave Spider-Man for being on the good side of it. Henry Cavill's mustache and mouth in Justice
His
League.
lack of mustache. And how terribly they botched that CGI.
They did in the last 5 minutes. They were like, "Yo, we got to get this done, son."
It's because they screwed that whole movie up.
Yeah, the whole movie's terrible, but especially.
And Henry Cavill had to have a mustache for another movie. They're like,
right,
snap.
like the reasoning behind it.
And Henry Cavill was like, "Look, that movie is more important than this. I'm not."
The mustache alone. Well, I think he was like contractually obligated to not shave his mustache.
Yeah.
Because he was in the middle of shooting.
Yeah.
If he shaves his mustache, it just ruins everything.
Mm-hmm. That's funny.
That mustache by itself is enough reason to watch the Snyder Cut.
Dude.
Because it's not in the Snyder Cut.
Let me tell you something. My father-in-law was here recently when we went fishing, and we were like, "Oh, let's watch a movie." And he's like, "Oh, we need to watch a movie I haven't got to see yet. Let's watch the new Batman or Superman." And it was maybe like around 8 o'clock or something, maybe 7:30.
Wait, did you say the new Batman v Superman?
Yeah, like the new version of it. And
he meant Justice League, but he said Batman v Superman.
I'm not quoting him exactly. I'm just talking about what happened. That just went. You should have used your nerd voice. On
no,
that.
But I'm legitimately curious. Did you watch Batman v Superman or did you watch Justice League?
You gotta let me finish the story.
Justice League was Batman v Superman 2.
Is it not important context?
Actually, what?
Do I not need to know what you watched? Okay, just tell us.
I didn't finish the story, so he wanted to watch a movie, right?
Wonder Woman,
and it's like 7 or 8 o'clock, and didn't there there's a new Batman Superman movie, blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, and I was like, yeah. And so he's going through the catalog on Prime or HBO Max, I can't remember, and it shows up like, oh, and I had the controller now, so I was like, oh yeah, it's right here. And I was like, but are you sure? Because what I recall is that movie is over 3 hours long, the Snyder Cut. And we were like, yeah. And then we put it on there, and it said 4 hours and 2 minutes. And all of us in the room were like, nope. I'm sorry, that's not happening. And
that's
then
your whole day.
that was we're done. Like that was it. So we ended up watching something else. But I just thought that was funny. Like we saw that 4 hours and 2 minutes, and we're like, nope,
bro,
absolutely not happening. That's a two-parter. Part 1.
Yeah,
part
you got to
2.
split that in half.
Yeah, so that's why I was saying.
To its credit, I watched that with a friend, and we intended to split it in half. We were going to break for dinner, and we just never broke for dinner. We just ate dinner during the movie. It just flew by. It was great.
Yeah, because the next morning we need to get up at 5 a.m. or 4.
Well, that's different.
4:30.
That's
4:30.
Yeah, that's
so that's why we were like, nope, not watching a 4-hour movie. So that was why I was saying, what movie did you watch? I was like, yeah, let me finish because we didn't watch it. But anyway, yeah.
So you just made me think of something when you mentioned the 3 and 4 hour movies. I forgot about it, but one of the other, I guess, revolutionary movies. I don't know if it was in 3D, but Peter Jackson's King Kong, like that was a 3-hour animated kind of movie. And
Peter Jackson's fault. He started doing that with Lord of the Rings, and he brought it over. And it just him, Peter Jackson, and James Cameron worked together.
Just couldn't make a short movie.
I mean,
but watching that movie on modern like TVs and stuff, it's a wild ride because back when it first came out, it was like that was the cutting edge, and it still looks really good. But talk about seeing seams, like one of you said before, like you see all the seams now.
Yeah, we. Okay, I'm gonna say this because I assume we're gonna be wrapping up here soon. But I have to say, we need to do a Nicolas Cage special, like where we just talk about as many Nicolas Cage movies as we possibly can, and just break them down, talk about Nicolas Cage, and realize that Nicolas Cage is actually his own movie universe, and it's the same character in all movies. That we just have to like.
And we need a crossover from the Nicky verse and the Eddie verse.
Fire. They can't come in the same universe, or like our universe will explode.
It's too much power. Oh, man. Cool. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and land this graphical plane.
Nice try.
I tried. I couldn't think of
Graphical plane.
It almost works.
We'll remove this visual artifact from memory? I don't know.
Steve, did you have one?
I want to remove that joke from memory.
Oh.
Okay.
Dang!
You can't say dang after your own burn.
I sure can.
Audience of one. You got it.
But I want to say thanks to the brothers for joining me today and talking about these things. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Bradston.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure. Everybody. My pleasure.
And the biggest thank you.
You're welcome again.
To everybody who's listening or watching, whatever we have playing in the background while you're listening to this. If you liked what you heard today, be sure to listen to our previous episodes, available on all your favorite platforms. We got Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcast, and now, as of a couple of weeks ago, we're on Facebook.
Hey.
Be sure to check us out. Give us a follow. Give us a like. Like and share also on the other platforms too. If you think somebody would enjoy listening, leave comments throughout. Let us know what you think. We definitely love to hear what you guys are thinking as we talk about these things. And holler at us in the Discord.
All day, baby.
Looking forward to seeing you there. But with all that being said, really appreciate you, Super Agile family. Wouldn't be nothing without you all.
Oh, have we announced what's happening with our schedule? Has that come up?
Yeah, we did that 2 weeks ago.
It feels like it was long.
Well, in case you forgot, do you
okay.
want to tell them real quick in case they forgot?
I just want to make sure. Yeah, well, in case you guys didn't hear, we're going to be moving away from a weekly release schedule. We will be releasing every other week. And the reason for that is because we say so. So look forward to that. Don't be surprised or discouraged, disillusioned, discouraged if you miss a week and you're like, what happened to my Super Agile Bros? We're still here.
And
we're just not.
And if you're a true fan, you probably already noticed that we're on that.
That's true. Yeah.
And now that you've noticed this, you're a true fan. So everybody.
Yeah. The reason is that it gives us time to get COVID on the weeks between releases.
And watch a Nicolas Cage movie.
Ooh. This is just called Nicolas Cast. What would be called? What did you call it before?
The Cage Cast? What?
Cage Cast. Ooh. That's fire right there. I like that.
Nicolas Cased.
What?
Nicolas Cage. Nick, may I call you Nick?
Nicolas
if you're listening, our people will be in touch with your people.
Oh, that was terrible.
I apologize for the last few minutes that have transpired. But with all that being said, everybody, we will catch you in the next episode. Have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever it is, wherever you are in this beautiful world of ours. And we will catch you in the next episode. Peace.